YouTube picks it up. But hello, this is impromptu, and I'll talk more. Well, less. I'll talk less about this on Sunday. But I wanted to get on and apologize. So this Sunday we were preaching through, or I was preaching through 1 Corinthians chapter 5, and I made just a dumb mistake in the sermon in that I said that the man who was sleeping with his father's wife was sleeping with his mother-in-law, and your father's wife is your stepmother. And so that's a space where I was just wrong, straight up. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that got mixed up as I was typing and kind of getting ready, but I was just wrong here. And so if any more explanation than I was wrong and made a mistake is kind of a he's protesting too much situation for you and you want to leave it at that, that's fine. If you don't kind of want to know the specific details, that's totally cool too. And I just want to say I was wrong, and that's important. That matters. And so I apologize. I don't think that changes the rest of kind of the content of the sermon. I think I still stand by what God was saying in there. But I absolutely got that wrong. So I apologize for that. So this was a semi-weird mistake to make. And in terms of how I got it, because when I went through the passage as I was writing it down, I was right. But when I went to type after I had gone through last week, on Tuesday, I had actually gone through kind of talking about what the preaching process even looks like a little bit, and some of the things and some of the things that you have to go through in order to kind of come to an answer. And I did talk about the importance of being right there. And so I apologize once again for that. But where was the disconnect where I just kind of missed this? Or at least missed it in when I was writing it at that time. And so here's what it is. Most of the time that the distaste for the man's sin is brought up, as I was particularly out of Dr. Anthony Thistleton's work, he goes through all of the ways in which the church in Corinth should have known that this was a problem. And kind of working between Dr. Gordon Fee and Dr. Anthony Thistleton, you can build this really compelling case that obviously the church in Corinth should have known that it was a problem, that we kind of short-circuited. And so as we come to this place, all of the ways or most of the ways that the church should have known it was a problem would be true both of a stepmother or a mother-in-law. Most of the laws are kind of side by side. And so this is going to give me a mild opportunity to spend 5 to 7 minutes talking about what Paul means when he said in verse 1 that the sexual immorality is of a kind that is not found among the pagans. And he says that in verse 1. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where that was kind of coming from. So kind of just as an opening statement, and this is out of Gordon Fee's work, he talks about how the Greco-Roman culture's sexual morality was shockingly, grossly permissive. Gross. It's gross. And Demosthenes, who was a very popular, prominent orator in the 3rd century BC, in the 300 BC era, he had coined a saying, and he said, "Mistresses we keep for the sake of pleasure, concubines for the daily care of our persons, but wives to bear us legitimate children and to be faithful guardians of our households," which is a terrible thing to say. And, a terrible way to live, even more so. And so if you're kind of considering this is what Roman sexual purity looked like for them. Any space where Rome has a higher standard than the people of God means we have a problem. And Anthony Thistleton was going through what Roman culture would have had to say about this incestuous man. And he wrote, in the 1st century BC, Cicero expresses extreme disgust when, quote, mother-in-law marries son-in-law. Oh, to think of the woman's sin, unbelievable, unheard of, to think that she did not quail. And so kind of pulling the kind of reaction, the visceral reaction that would have been had towards this incestuous man. This is the sort of quote that comes to mind. Actually, right around 160, 170 AD, the Institutes of Gaius came out, which looks like kind of a legal textbook, which would inform people of what Roman law was. It's part of how we understand what was legal or illegal in Rome right around that time period. And one of the things that it mentions is, moreover, I cannot marry my former mother-in-law or daughter-in-law or my stepdaughter or stepmother. And so all of these are considered equivalently kind of bad, equivalently forbidden or taboo to marry your mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, stepdaughter, or stepmother. And lastly, as this would have also been considered wrong in Jewish law, and so in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 11, it writes, Moses talks really explicitly about being with the father's wife, and that's just the father's wife alone. But in Deuteronomy 27, there's this long list of curses, and one of the curses would be exactly what this man is guilty of. Deuteronomy 27:20 reads, Cursed be anyone who lies with his father's wife, because he has violated his father's rights. All the people shall say, Amen. So, right, this is exactly the curse that this man this is exactly where this man is pressing against what God has called for his people. And similarly, just 3 verses down in Deuteronomy 27:23, it reads, Cursed be anyone who lies with his mother-in-law. All the people shall say, Amen. Now, this isn't absolute. There are, right, once again, in that Leviticus 20:11, it talks about being with the father's wife. It says nothing about a mother-in-law in that section, so that's not in literally every section, but they were frequently paired together as equivalent transgressions. And I think as I was thinking and writing, I made that jump, and that was a wrong jump, and I was straight wrong. So I apologize for that. If you chose to watch this whole thing, thank you, bless you. And I hope that you have an amazing rest of your week. God bless you. Bye. I know.